So it's Mark and Beth back again. We're now talking about the top wingers in the FC 100. Obviously, with Beth still with me, it's fairly obvious who's topping the wingers chart. It's a certain Mohamed Salah. Now, Salah has had a great season at Liverpool again, signing a new contract to stay at the club beyond the next 2 years. I think he's 33 this summer, but he shows no sign of slowing down. So, Beth, we're not surprised that Mo Salah's topped this list ahead of people like Lamine Yamal, Kvaratskhelia, Kvaratskhelia, Ousmane Dembele, Leo Messi. He deserves his place at the top.
He does, yeah. He's had a tremendous season. I think many people thought he'd never be able to top or to match what he did in his first season at the club back in 2017-18. But I think this is probably, I think he said it himself, it's his best season, not just because of the goals he scored, but the assists as well. I mean, he's broken a whole host of records pretty much every week. There's been one record or another. Some of them you've not even heard of before, but he just always constantly seems to be pushing the limits and sending records tumbling. So yeah, he's been massive for Liverpool this season. And the thing that's really struck me is his real will to get Liverpool over the line at times this season. He spoke earlier on, back at the start of the campaign about really wanting to win the Premier League with Liverpool and getting the chance to celebrate it with fans in a way that they couldn't do because of the pandemic back in 2020. And he's almost made that his personal mission, I think, this season. And obviously he's fulfilled on that promise.
I was thinking about Salah a little bit recently because obviously he's had such a great season. And I think, certain players define certain eras of the Premier League. I think if you go back to the 90s, Eric Cantona defined it for what he did at Man United. I think that the noughties you're looking at, maybe Thierry Henry, he's the player that everyone remembers from that period of time and what he did with Arsenal, the Invincibles. I think Mo Salah, for me, he's defined the 20s. And I know that Man City have dominated in terms of winning Premier Leagues, but no player has really stood out as being as consistent as Mo Salah. Salah's been an amazing player, and if you're comparing him to Henry and Cantona, to the absolute greats of the Premier League, that shows the impact he's had. But, neither Cantona nor Henry won a Champions League. He's done that with Liverpool. He's got more goals than either of them in the Premier League. He's the highest scoring non-British player in the Premier League scoring charts. He really is up there in the pantheon with the greatest players the Premier League's ever seen. And I think he's really finally getting that recognition now, isn't he?
Yeah, I think that is what we've seen this season. And I think, there will be people who say stylistically, the way that he plays, maybe he's not quite as entertaining or dynamic to watch as say, for example, Henry was. But I also think as well, sometimes there's a little bit of a nostalgia bias that creeps in. I think players sometimes, once they've retired and hung up the boots, then you always sort of miss what you don't realise what you had until it's gone. And so I think maybe there's a world where in 10, 15 years time, people look back at Mo Salah with even greater admiration than what we've seen him get so far. But yeah, I think, we have seen that recognition come this season. He's sort of scooped up a lot of the individual accolades at the end of this season, and I think on a couple of them it's drawn him level with Thierry Henry. So I think now the challenge for him, and certainly what he will be setting his sights on, is surpassing Henry's legacy in terms of at least some, scooping up some more of those individual prizes next season.
I think he's already done that. I think he's won, just like Henry's won 3 Football of the Year awards. He's won as many Premier League titles. Like I said, he's got the Champions League. He's won FA Cups, League Cups. I think Mo Salah is now ahead of Thierry Henry. I think he's there. I think he's done it for a longer period of time as well. So I think he's taken that step. But I'll tell you what I do wonder. Obviously, we know that Kenny Dalglish is the absolute pinnacle of Liverpool greats. I think because of what he achieved, Champions League, European Cups, I think he will stay there. But is Mo Salah now above Steven Gerrard in terms of Liverpool legends?
I think, it's so hard because Steven Gerrard is loved so much because of what he, he's a local lad. And I think, even though I think Mo Salah has become a little bit of an adopted Scouser over the past 8 or 9 years, I still think, that carries weight. And I think a lot of fans recognise that, Steven Gerrard wasn't necessarily playing in great Liverpool teams. He sort of dragged them over the line and at times, and it would have been great to see Steven Gerrard playing in the sort of team that Mo Salah is now. So I think it's hard to compare them really, but he's absolutely up there in that company. I think in the future people will talk, as you say, about Dalglish, they'll talk about Gerrard, and they'll very much talk about Mo Salah. So yeah, for me, I mean, and again, when you think he's still got the potential, if he stays the next 2 seasons to go on and win even more with Liverpool, he's right up there in that conversation.
So I'm looking at the list now. We've got number 2, Lamine Yamal, number 3, Rafinha, number 4, Vinny Jr., number 5, Ousmane Dembele, number 6, Bukayo Saka, number 7, Kvaratskhelia, before we get to the ever young Lionel Messi at number 8. And obviously, 2 to 7, you've got a lot of young players, emerging talent, none younger and more emerging than Lamine Yamal. So is it feasible for Mo Salah to be top of this list next year? And again, consider he'll be pushing 34. There's some very, very hot young talent behind him right there.
Yeah, there is. But I think, Mo Salah keeps himself in such impeccable shape and is so driven by sort of being the best that I think he will, again, similar to Van Dijk, will feel that he can still be occupying top spot next season. I mean, Lamine Yamal is just stunning, isn't he? He's just, every single week he seems to do something incredibly impressive and you think, oh, he can't top that. And then the next week he goes and does something else. So yeah, considering his age, the sky's the absolute limit for him. I suppose the only concern for Yamal is he is so young and he's played so much already that it's about that longevity and hopefully, he's able to stay fit and fulfill what looks like it could be an incredible career. But yeah, I mean, PSG as well have so many, like you say, Ousmane Dembele is 5, Kvaratskhelia butchered his pronunciation there at number 7. So yeah, I think those players will certainly be trying to push Salah for that title. But I think he will feel like he can still be amongst the very best in Europe next season.
Now, obviously, we know that Mo had a long season of will he, won't he stay, and I think Mo kind of stoked the fires quite often by talking about his contract, and I think he was playing us along a little bit. I think at times he was suggesting that he might leave, and he's come out since and said that there was a 10%, he felt there was a 10% chance of him going. Do we believe that? Because I thought all along that he was going to stay. I thought Liverpool couldn't let him go. There was no one to replace him. It was just almost like a kind of a tap dance around the subject. But I don't know, were you a bit more concerned that he might leave, or did you think all along that it was just a bit of theatre by Mo to get it to right to the end of the season?
Yeah, I think he played the game a little bit, and you can't blame him. And what he did say in those comments about the 10% chance of staying was that he was aware of the way that Liverpool's owners, their policy tends to be that when a player goes over the age of 30, they steer away from giving out new, expensive contracts. So that is true. But I think it's always felt like Mo Salah was a bit of a special case. The same with Virgil van Dijk. I think Liverpool as well, considering they've just won the league title at a canter, there's room for improvement within that squad. And I think there's plenty of areas that they maybe need to be targeting this summer. So if they'd have had to replace Van Dijk and Salah as well, it would have been a really, really difficult thing for them to do in the one window. So, yeah, I think it has felt for a while that Salah and Van Dijk, it was inevitable that they'd stay. But I suppose until it's done, you never really know.
I mean, we're talking speculative here because I know that Liverpool are very keen to sign Florian Vvers from Bayer Leverkusen. If that deal gets done and they sign one of the best young talents in the world right now, does that mean that Mo Salah's kind of importance diminishes, or does it mean that he's even more dangerous and more likely to score lots of goals next season?
I think Mo Salah will still back himself to still be the team's main man. I think one thing, to say about Salah is that he's contributed to such a huge amount of Liverpool's goals this season, whether it be goals or assists, that they can't bank on him being able to do that for the next 2-3 seasons. So they need to look elsewhere for a little bit of creativity and for goals. And I think with Trent Alexander-Arnold leaving as well, the amount of goals he was able to set up, they need another sort of creative fulcrum in the team. And I think that's why Florian Wirtz is obviously very high on the list of priorities. So, yeah, I think Arne Slot said it a couple of weeks ago, even if Mo Salah, his importance diminishes a little bit in terms of he drops 10 goals, his numbers will still be comparable with the best players in the world. So, yeah, I still think he'll be hugely important regardless of whether the Wirtz deal gets over the line.
So Mo Salah's here now, some pretty stern competition to top the wingers list. So we're going to throw to Jules Laurent and Alex Kirkland now, our Real Madrid correspondent, no clues there, to see who's going to top the list of centre forwards.